in our solution, we excel in high efficiency at high throughput, or technical term is high power densities, with durable performance. When you have the combination of efficiency, high throughput, and durability, then only your solution becomes economical. So actually, in lab together with EPFL, we have demonstrated even 34% solar to hydrogen efficiency, but this was at
Wow.
low throughput. So what we are commercializing is 25%, which already is double efficiency than anything else you would find out
Yeah.
there.
Welcome to the 10th anniversary season of Swiss Impact with Banerjees.
This season, we bring you the movers, shakers, and visionaries who are redefining industries and turning investments into real lasting impact.
These are the investors changing the game, driving sustainability, transforming lives, and proving that profit and purpose go hand in hand.
Every investment is a choice to shape the world we leave behind. If you're ready to be part of something greater, to invest in impact, to invest in hope, to invest in change,
this is where your journey begins.
Welcome to Swiss Impact with Banerjees. Today we uncover stories that sounds like a science fiction, but it's real, it's revolutionary, and it's about hydrogen energy based on zero emissions, zero waste, and 99% recyclable circular solution, which is the future of our planet.
absolutely. So we are diving into not one, but two powerful themes. First, and this is mind-blowing, almost every major breakthrough humanity has achieved has its roots in nature. From the flight of birds inspiring airplanes to the design of windmills, nature has always been our blueprint. We humans have made humble imitators of Earth's genius, and today we explore one of its greatest secrets: photosynthesis, the biological engine behind all life on this planet.
So photosynthesis, if you remember it from school, is a miraculous process by which green plants and certain microorganisms convert sunlight, water, and carbon dioxide into a chemical energy. Without it, Earth would be a barren rock. Life as we know it simply wouldn't exist, save for a few extreme of bacteria in the deep ocean. But what if we could actually replicate or copy that process, build systems that mirror nature and create clean energy out of thin air? That's what scientists and innovators are racing to achieve. And it's happening now. Ben, what's our second tip?
So the second theme, we have all heard about electrification of transport. Electric cars, electric trucks are booming. But here's the truth. If half of Europe's cars went electric tomorrow, would our electricity grid survive? And what about the long-haul trucks? Can they wait hours to charge? Enough for 100 kilometers more?
These are very tough questions, and they lead to a deeper realization. Electricity alone won't take us to a truly sustainable future. So what's the answer?
And that's where comes hydrogen, the most abundant element in the universe, and is there in our plain sight. It has been with us all along, quietly offering us a path towards a cleaner, more resilient energy system. I remember reading the book The Hydrogen Economy by Jeremy Rifkin already back in 2002. The book painted a future where hydrogen isn't just an alternative, it is the next evolution of energy. And that vision is now becoming a reality. 23 years further down the line.
And today's guest is at the heart of this transformation. What if your energy came straight from the sun? So Dr. Saurabh Tembhurne is making this dream come true for all of us, a pioneering merging nature's brilliance with hydrogen innovation to power a cleaner, smarter world. You don't want to miss that. Please join us in welcoming our special guest, Dr. Sorabh Tembhurne.
Hello. Thanks, Pam, as
Hello.
well.
Hello, Sorabh. Welcome. And where are you right now? We are so honored to have you with us today.
Same, equally honored to be on the session with you. Currently in my office here in Lausanne, in Switzerland.
Not so far from us. That's amazing. So let me introduce you briefly to our audience for those who don't know you and your company yet. So you are the founder and CEO of SoHHytec and your guide into the future of clean energy. You had a PhD from EPFL and also amazing university IIT Bombay, where you graduated. You've reimagined the way we think about fuel. Your groundbreaking solar hydrogen tech doesn't just work, it mimics nature's photosynthesis to create green hydrogen that's accessible, scalable, and ready for industries and cities, even the space. You've been featured globally, celebrated by leading innovation platforms, and you're not talking about the future, you are delivering it today. So let's explore today your sun-powered mission to revolutionize energy with SoHHytec.
So before we delve deeper, Saurabh, I'm really impressed by your academic journey because I know how well and how difficult it is to get into IITs in India. And I have heard that IIT Bombay is one of the most prestigious and the toughest tech institute to get in. And that you followed all the way to PhD at EPFL in Switzerland, which is another world-class university. What does EPFL stand for again?
Ask Sorabh. We studied there.
They call Polytechnic Federal de Lausanne, so it's like Swiss Federal Institute of Technology in Lausanne.
Ah, okay. I thought ETH is the one.
It's both.
Good.
Okay. And this has been quite an academic journey. So how does it feel to be alumni of two such renowned institutions? And I'm sure they are as proud of you as you are of them.
No, definitely. Firstly, thanks for the kind introduction. So in fact, IIT Bombay was the birthplace of my motivation to become an inventor and eventually basically an entrepreneur. The ecosystem there is one of the most unparalleled in terms of the holistic development, basically what a student can get. And then later on at EPFL in Switzerland, basically that was my realizing ground to basically actually do the invention and take it forward basically with my own company and become the entrepreneur. So I think the ecosystem has been very supportive, and I was fortunate enough basically to be taking benefit of that support. So I feel definitely incredibly honored and proud to be coming out of these top institutes.
Amazing. And I'm curious, you've been called the man who bottled sunshine. How would you describe what you actually do with the sun?
Thanks for that. But actually, right from my childhood, I've been fascinated with sunlight. And actually, I was wondering, can we trap sunlight? Then I very soon realized actually optically it's not possible to trap sunlight. So then, okay, I stumbled onto optics with chemistry. Eventually, what we do is in process quite simple. You very well already described the process of photosynthesis. So we do sunlight-driven chemistry, which is quite simple in terms of overall process, but complex in terms of, let's say, making it efficient and durable. So for example, with sunlight, we directly break the water. You produce a clean and green fuel that is hydrogen, which you can bottle. And that's, here you have it. You can bottle the sunshine in a fuel.
That's cool.
And your company, SoHHytec, how do you say it? SoHHytec or SoHHytec?
SoHHytec is the correct pronunciation. Supposed to be solar hydrogen technologies. That's why, of course, it also has a pronunciation matching with SoHHytec, which is...
Yeah, exactly. It's called the creator of clean, abundant energy. How personal is this mission for you?
Like, why this? What's your mission, your story?
Yes, so in fact, it is quite personal. So I grew up in suburbs of India, and there I imagine you may be very familiar. I had first-hand experience of basically what it means to not have access to clean energy and affordable energy, how it impacts not only the economic growth or economic basically of the society, but also the social impact and the human development itself. So for me, I think energy is the backbone also of social growth, not just the economic growth. And had been always fascinated with solar energy, and then to drive this mission ended up creating SoHHytec eventually to provide basically scalable, affordable, and cost effective way of fuel and power eventually to the wider masses.
Yeah, I remember also, I used to visit my great grandmother in Calcutta, where every day you had 3 or 4 hours of no electricity. It was cut off. So, but how has been growing up in India and working in Switzerland shaped your values as a scientist and entrepreneur?
It's actually quite an interesting mix. So in India, growing up, you are always competing in India. I think that is one thing you learn there. And if you excel in competing in India, you are never afraid of competing anywhere else. That is very
That's
positive
true.
thing. The
Yeah,
second thing is in India, you also learn on how to get things done in creative manner, in pragmatic manner. I think these are two important traits what an entrepreneur should have, which had helped me basically now. And in Switzerland, I got a boost of basically that discipline, that perfectionism. Then I became an expert basically, eventually ended up doing the invention. And then Switzerland is also very international. It gives you immediate exposure of the entire international basically mindset and the market. This is
Mhm.
also basically quite important to become a science-preneur, which I call a combination of scientist and entrepreneur. So yes, it has
Mhm.
incredibly actually nicely helped me to say this.
Yeah.
Nice. So, Rob, now for a common man, please explain. You have this invention called artificial tree. How does it actually mimic nature?
So in fact, our core product is called artificial tree, or the name is actually art for the French word arbor. The process is as you had earlier explained. So what we do, we collect the sunlight, we concentrate that sunlight, and like in real trees or plants, you use sunlight and CO2 and water to do produce chemical energy oxygen. We do exactly same with that sunlight, which is the actual photons in the sunlight. We break the water directly and we produce highly clean and green hydrogen together with actually very pure oxygen, which is also quite interesting. And then on top of that, we can also provide byproduct heat, which is also another very useful energy output. So in a nutshell, it's sun in, water in, and then you have all these three outputs coming out of the system.
Now I will challenge you. What if there is no sun? Like in Switzerland, there are a lot of clouds many
Yes.
days of the year. So what do? Can you still collect sunlight behind the clouds, or that is not working?
No, so of course, inherently for the solar operation, you need the sunlight. But interesting thing is, our system can work with 2% of the sunlight all the way to 110% of the sunlight. So
Okay.
even today in Lausanne, it's cloudy. It can still produce, and it is still producing. One of our first pilot is, by the way, right in front of me, 5 minutes from us in Lausanne. Even during the night time, and that is a practical aspect of designing a solution. So technology is one thing, but we ended up creating an entire solution around the core technology of artificial photosynthesis. So we have made the system very versatile. So even in fact during night time, we can integrate with other renewable sources of electricity and still break water even during the night time. So actually it is hybrid input capable, and we can deploy it anywhere in the world, whether it's Switzerland or even north of Europe, which may not be that sunny, or south of Europe, which is actually quite sunny. How you operate, then it's a matter of basically cost optimization. But the system has that functionality to be pure solar based or solar plus external green power based.
And my question would be, in case if me as a consumer, I'm only interested in hydrogen, or I'm only interested in electricity and oxygen, but I don't want the heat. Can you save or preserve the heat and use it when I need the heat, or to use it to further break the water later on?
So in fact, that's what we do. Initially, we use significant part of that heat to optimize the chemistry. So our process is actually sunlight driven, but heat optimized. There is certain component of heat which is produced, as you just figured out. On top of that, there is excess heat energy which we give for end use. Now there are variety of use cases of that heat for end consumer. For residential heating we can use. We can convert that heat also, by the way, into air conditioning if the need be. So we can provide 7 degrees Celsius air cooling. if you need, or for industrial purposes, we can use it for preheating purposes. And all industries normally require that preheating. So you can still significantly save other sources of energy, which you normally would deploy for those heating.
Yeah.
So yes, there are variety of scenarios in which you can use that heat.
Yes. And another I found very interesting that you claim, the SoHHytec, that
He doesn't trust you yet. You claim, yeah.
that you are
Let
zero
me hear the
emission.
question and then I will maybe justify.
You are zero emission, zero waste, and 99% recyclable. How challenging was it to build such an extreme circular solution? Because we do a lot with circular economy, but never have I heard of 99% recyclable.
That's actually a very interesting question, and such kind of mindset basically has to be there right from this beginning of designing of a product or a solution. Technology is one thing, of course, we excel in artificial photosynthesis, but beyond that, operational sustainability, which is zero emission, basically is one thing. Then life cycle based sustainability, right from cradle to grave of the entire equipment, is also very important. We were right from the beginning working basically with EPFL and European Space Agency, were doing intensive life cycle studies. And based on that, we were working on materials which are heavily recyclable and the approaches which are heavily recyclable. And from that perspective, actually, our system is 99+ percent recyclable. We can recycle even more than that, but that has been inherently part of basically how we design the entire system. A lot is made with recyclable materials such as glass, aluminum, steel, and other aspects basically.
And you are not nowhere in your system are you incorporating, for example, electricity storage or something? Because for that you will need heavy earth.
So electricity storage, technically hydrogen is a replacement of battery storage, right?
Exactly.
When we produce hydrogen, you could view hydrogen as a long-term energy storage solution. Batteries, okay, are good for a few hours of storage and maybe economical for this very niche. But if you go to long-term and seasonal-based storage, pumped hydro or hydroelectricity is the only solution till now which is viable, right? And hydrogen, because it's a chemical which can be stored without any leaking problem, without any, let's say, other inherently safety problem. So you can really store it for weeks, months, or even seasons. So that is technically, and for storing hydrogen, you do not require any special rare earth material. It is a simple steel cylinder.
Yeah.
Sorabh, you also claim that your system achieved 25% solar to hydrogen efficiency, which is double the industry average. So how did you do that? What's the secret?
Firstly, we do not claim this. We have demonstrated this.
I'm just
Been
you.
extensively published in Nature, Energy, and other high-impact scientific journals basically. But yes, it is quite a breakthrough, but not efficiency only. Important is in our solution, we excel in high efficiency at high throughput, or technical term is high power densities, with durable performance. When you have the combination of efficiency, high throughput, and durability, then only your solution becomes economical. Because when you deploy an equipment, there's a capex involved, there's an opex involved, and there's the lifetime of that solution. And it would produce certain amount of energy, which is hydrogen or basically other outputs, right? So all three things are important. So actually in lab together with EPFL, we have demonstrated even 34% solar to hydrogen efficiency. But this was at low throughput. So what we are commercializing is 25%, which already is double efficiency than anything else you would find out there. But it's a technical term, but this we achieve at very high power densities and durable performance, which is basically quite important to make it very economical.
Yeah, please.
Go ahead. No, I mean, talking about economics, I mean, this green hydrogen is a massive, massive market. It's nearly $1 trillion market. So where are you sitting on it? Are you at the top of it, or do you have a certain niche in it? Where are you in there?
So technically, of course, the entire addressable market is $1 trillion and could grow even further. For us, we can eventually, and we have to go there, cater to the entire market. Because what we do is basically currently most of the hydrogen is produced using fossil fuels. It is being used also heavily. It's not that hydrogen market is new. The use cases which are coming with hydrogen, there are certain use cases which are new. But in industrial world, it has been already used since multiple decades for oil refining, fertilizer manufacturing, steel making, steel processing, and other aspects. But for mobility use cases, basically for energy storage, these are new and upcoming. We think our solution can cater to the entire ecosystem or the spectrum of use cases, and that's why we have made our system also versatile. I think, Ms. Sweta, you already asked this question, what happens during the night time, right? If we do not have that flexibility, then we are catering to a niche which is also only the regions where sunlight is there, but actually we are not. We have made the system also flexible to be operational even during basically the night period. So we think, of course, there's always a serviceable market with which we think with due execution efforts, we can cater to 20% of this entire $1 trillion market.
Amazing. And now about impact. So you also claim, or you already saving 10 billion tons of CO2 emissions per year. So what is the big plan? So what is the projected impact over the next 5-10 years? Maybe you can give us some more numbers.
Yes, so there maybe needs a clarification. So 10 billion tons of CO2 technically is if we replace entire gray hydrogen, which is fossil fuel based hydrogen, with our solution. So eventually we have to basically go there. But apart, and this is based on existing needs for hydrogen. What is happening is hydrogen's use case basically is being more accepted and more pursued basically even in mobility sector. Switzerland has been running logistic trucks for a supermarket since multiple years. European policymakers already are making a law basically to create hydrogen fueling stations for major logistic routes. Same is happening in US as well as India. Then other use cases such as energy storage, microgrid application for remote communities, for example, let's say islands or remote communities which may be void of electricity. There, if we can produce hydrogen, store energy in hydrogen, and then give back basically that electricity around the clock, is a very viable use case even on the economic side. So those use cases are also increasing, and the use cases where fossil fuels or natural gas is being used to replace them initially with a mix and eventually 100% is also increasing. So that 10 billion tons per year of CO2 is just on existing production of hydrogen, which is for industrial use cases. And eventually, I think it will increase the potential saving even to 50 to 70 billion tons if you talk about use cases of hydrogen with these new sectors coming in basically.
Wow. It's, I have an idea, brilliant idea. I'll send you an invoice for this later on. I have an electric car.
Yes.
How big is your machine that, for example, the top layer of the whole electric car can be made the sun solar panel, and your machine inside my car's trunk or the bonnet changes that into hydrogen. I just have to fill water in the car and the car runs on hydrogen. How far are you from this solution?
So very much doable, just that maybe the roof area of the car may not be sufficient to run you for that, to run the car for that long. But what we can do, we can plant one artificial tree in your garden and you can power with one of our smallest tree, 5 houses, 5 average Swiss houses for their entire electricity, entire heating needs and daily commuting for your cars. So that itself would be quite significant.
How big will this tree be?
Will Swiss authorities allow that? That's the biggest question, I think.
I think they
very
How big is the tree?
Wait.
One of our smallest tree is a 9 meter in diameter, and then the question of Sweta comes into picture. In certain areas, basically visual impact is important in Switzerland, so I think they may have certain concerns, but we already have 2 building permits for 2 Swiss projects, which are right next to a residential community actually. So of course, it also needs to be accepted in terms of the mindset of the people. If they want clean solution, our solution, by the way, tree, and maybe we'll share a brief clip. They are not that ugly to look. They are decent to look at. We can also make it more artistic or fancy from that perspective. But yes, in residential communities, in areas like Switzerland, building permitting from visual aspect could be a perspective. On safety or technical aspect, it's not a problem at all. It is very safe to be around them actually.
Nice. We start to trust you, Saurabh.
And can you explain your...
I am a scientist at the core. I have all the data to back up whatever I am saying.
Exactly. That's the best kind of people. And can you explain your garden and forest deployment method?
No, sure. So actually, in terms of how we are planning to deploy our trees is either it could be a garden. Garden for us is relatively on the small scale of projects. Initially, we are targeting mostly industrial clients because hydrogen use case in industrial sector is well established. Hydrogen has a lot of, let's say, impact to make also on the end user, such as end consumer, but there certain education is needed, certain ecosystem building is needed. So initially we're starting with the industrial sector, eventually moving towards even end consumers. So garden basically is maybe few tens to few hundreds of these trees where we install the solution. We provide a full plug and play solution for the user or the customer. The customer invests in the solution or the asset and owns the asset, and we provide the operational maintenance as per the customer needs. So this is a turnkey model where the customer can invest and own the asset. Like your PV panels, you may own it basically, and similar to that. The second model, the forest one, is normally for bigger projects. Bigger projects are mostly again for industrial clients, could be for fertilizer industries, steel industries. Decarbonization of these industries basically is quite difficult unless you are changing the fossil fuel itself. And this is the cool thing about hydrogen. You can replace the fossil fuel with hydrogen, right? So there you are deploying multiple hundreds to thousands of these trees. That's why it's a forest. There normally these industries are used to buying the fuel or buying the energy rather than owning or investing in the asset. So for those kind of scenarios, SoHHytec also is providing hydrogen as a service. Basically, what it means is SoHHytec, together with its partner network of investors, project investors, basically, and certain banks, we will invest in the project. We will own the project, and to our end consumer, we are simply selling the green fuel and green energy with an offtake.
It's quite often, same like the windmill projects. But if I have such a tree in my garden, what am I supposed to do to it? Give it water every day? And how much is it going to cost me?
So yes, you need to give only water to that tree, like the real tree. Rest it will do automated. Sunlight it will capture. Operation, everything is basically automated. Even maintenance wise, it's a very low maintenance system. Some cleaning may be required, even though we deploy automated cleaning. In terms of costing, let me put it into perspective of cost for energy rather than the capex, because capex may not be the right parameter, right?
Yeah.
We can produce hydrogen at a price point at a certain scale, basically at around $2 per kilogram, which by the way is the price of gray hydrogen, which is coming from fossil fuel. And this increases in certain sectors. For example, in Switzerland, the market price of gray hydrogen is 10 to 12 Swiss franc per kilogram, just to tell you, right? And in certain other markets, basically it may be 6 to 8 euros for small scale consumers, and large scale consumer may be paying 3 euros, something like that. So what we are bringing, basically, our solution also is very modular. What it means is I can provide that cost effective benefit not only at 100 megawatt scale, but also at much smaller scales, because inherently, like a tree, you replicate the tree and the project becomes bigger, but the economics can be inherent just in one tree sector. So on the cost of production of hydrogen, compared to anything else you may find out there in terms of green way to produce hydrogen, we can be 30 to 60% cheaper. And this exact number, of course, depends on the local parameters. But this is what we can provide. And thanks to the efficiency, durability, and the cost economics of our solution, we can provide such lucrative.
What is the longevity of such tree? How long? 100 years?
Minimum 25 years. In certain scenarios, also 40 years. So it is a long-lasting tree.
You put enough water, but the gardening usually ends up on my shoulders.
We do not need that much water actually.
But then it's about the tree I was coming into. Now,
Till you are thinking, you are not only focusing to benefit our planet Earth, what I see, but also outer space. So how is your company contributing to sustainability beyond our planet? And what role do you envision clean fuels playing in the future of space exploration?
Interesting topic. Actually, so since 3+ years, we have been working with European Space Agency for adapting and deploying our core tech for space applications. For space, basically, there are two scenarios. One is the propulsion of rocket itself. Currently they use heavily a mixture of liquid kerosene with oxygen, a fuel called kerolox, basically. There are new engines coming. For example, Ariane Group in Europe already made liquid hydrogen engines, and there are other companies also trying to do that. So this is to decarbonize the propulsion system itself. The other aspect is basically space agencies are targeting occupation, or let's say some kind of manned missions to Moon or Mars. There, if you want to produce energy, you need a closed loop system. You may find water, maybe some ice on Mars, but what you do with that? And that's where our solution can come into picture. You have enough sunlight, by the way. Of course, the day and night are much longer, maybe 6 months day, 6 months night. So you need also storage. So what we do and what we were doing with the European Space Agency was, with our solution, you can work in forward mode, which is sunlight and water or ice with hydrogen and oxygen. Oxygen is a life-saving commodity. If you go in space, you definitely need that. Hydrogen becomes your fuel. You also have some heat energy, which can be used for heating and cooling, which you need both also in space. The other aspect we were doing for space, we made our technology reversible. So now during night, let's say when the sun is not there, you can feed the stored hydrogen and oxygen back to our same reactor, and it will give you electricity and heat. So it's a completely closed loop system, and you will regenerate water. And this is the interesting part for, let's say, explorations in space, because there what matters is from small mass, what more you can do. So they care about mass density, right? And this is what we have been exploring. But eventually, the same feature is deployable for terrestrial applications. And this is what we are doing for remote communities, microgrids basically, right? Our solution can not only produce hydrogen, but can use also hydrogen during night time and produce electricity. So we can power remote villages, remote communities, islands, or even entire towns or industries just with these trees. And this is what we actually want to do. Use space adaptation solution eventually to deploy it towards terrestrial.
That also happens often. I was just thinking, now I remember the question. So I was thinking of telling my mother to buy your tree. But to convince her, if I tell her that if you have one tree, you can give electricity to 5 houses, that makes sense. But then the next thing you said is that a kilo of hydrogen costs so much money. So can you put it in a simple layman's perspective? What does a kilo of hydrogen mean? For example, for somebody who is driving a car or who is giving electricity to the house.
Very interesting, just to understand from layman perspective. Actually, a kilo of hydrogen can run a car which Toyota Hyundai have already made. So everything is proven by around 150 kilometers. What this means, now a liter of petrol or diesel can run maybe 10 kilometer or 12 kilometers, right?
Yeah.
Let's say 15. So there's a factor of 10. Now in Switzerland, I think 1 liter costs you 1.8 Swiss franc. In India, maybe 100 rupees. If you multiply that by 10, that could be the acceptable price for our parents or other people basically to run a hydrogen car if they are buying hydrogen at the fueling station. So you see, if it's 100 rupees even, this is almost $1+. So you can at the fueling station sell hydrogen actually at $10+, and it would be same for an end consumer. And if you can do it even cheaper, that is basically much additional benefit. If you can produce at scale basically at $2, and eventually at a station with compression dispensing you can sell basically at $4 or $5, that is still significantly cheaper with a completely green ecosystem, basically, right? So it is
Yeah.
the economics for mobility and for cars with hydrogen is very, very lucrative. But of
Yeah.
course, you produce that hydrogen in a clean and with potentially direct solar way,
Yeah.
and not with other non-green or let's say other electricity-based way.
Yeah, no, that completely. I remember seeing once a picture in Africa where a Tesla is being charged by a diesel generator.
Correct. That those kind of scenarios doesn't make sense and it's hypocritical. Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
Let's go back to finance now, because you've projected 1.5 billion Swiss francs revenue over the next years. What is driving this confidence?
So again, it's a expectation rather than projection, because
Okay.
that 1.5 billion worth of revenue in the next years is based on the projects which have already come our way. Of course, not closed in terms of feasibility studies and pre-feasibility studies, which we have already done for concrete location with concrete clients. So it's a high confidence number, and actually the number is increasing each month when we basically explore more the market opportunities.
That's
What
why
is
you are
important-
so confident.
no, definitely. Of course, we have to execute towards that, and that's where comes the picture of how fast we can scale to deploy to that demand. I think the demand is not really the problem. Hydrogen is already basically the existing market is huge. If you can provide cost economical solution, that's the key here, right? If you can provide
Yeah.
cost economical or cost effective solution, the market is huge. But we
Yes.
have to be able to scale that fast to cater to those demands.
And you have already raised $12 million in the past round funding. So what kind of investors are you looking for now?
So that comes to my question of scaling. So to further grow, of course, we need more funding. Going forward also, because we are in the deep tech energy ecosystem, you need the right set of investors or shareholders to join you on the journey. We are looking for basically two main buckets of investor. One is on the impact investment side, because that is core of what we are doing. So
Yeah.
our partners, basically our shareholders, should understand our vision and they should believe in basically pushing this forward on the green fuels. And the other is basically corporate strategic investor, because in this ecosystem you cannot do things alone. You need to partner with the right people, whether it's your customer, whether it's your manufacturer, whether it's your let's say development partner. So these are the two key categories of investors we are looking for.
Yeah. I just had another question. You guys must have done a lot of pilot study. So you said the tree doesn't need much cleaning. Oh, of course, in Switzerland, you have nothing. You just have snow, rain, or wind. But if you go to India or to Africa, Middle East, you have also sand, dust.
Yes.
How does your tree deal with that?
So depending on the environment, the cleaning frequency basically changes. For that and for that very same reason, we have deployed a automatic dry cleaning system. Basically, these trees have big solar collection area, which have a wiper system technically, which can be deployed twice per day, once per day, depending on whether it's a desert, whether it's a dusty environment. And thin layers of dust or sand can automatically be cleaned. And that is inherently important, basically. But the durability is also another aspect. We have designed everything, even in the heavy desert area, to be able to last for 25 plus years. So the soiling effect, which is quite common, even PV panels basically degrade significantly because of those soiling effect. Those things are not basically that critical in our system because of the very nature we have designed everything.
Wow.
Nice. Sure. I have funny question. As you met some presidents and global leaders from our planet, which story from the field has moved you the most? What you've heard or what you experienced?
I would maybe comment on what I experienced. So this is slightly, let's say, a very relevant and touching story. So we were in Brazil together with our Swiss president on his economic delegation, actually. And then outside of Rio, there is one of the biggest slums. They call it favelas, basically, right? So, and then of course in the delegation, we were pushing basically for clean energy, collaboration on green hydrogen, and those all the other aspects. But when you go slightly outside the main conference location, you are exposed to that reality where people do not have access to basic energy. Is not affordable. And for me, as I had earlier commented, I think energy is the backbone of entire, not just economical, social development. Because if you provide energy to these guys, they can find creative ways to basically earn their living. If the energy itself is not there, they basically suffer on the basic needs. So I think what is also important is we may talk about eventually making a dent to save basically our climate, but also what is important is that whatever we are developing has to be accessible eventually to the end masses and the wider scale community. Then only I think you would really make an impact. So it's not only climate impact I think we should focus on, eventually how that solution which is benefiting the climate is impacting the social life also is very, very important. This is one learning I had, I think.
Amazing.
Whoa.
You received so much recognition with your project already, but what still keeps you awake at night? What's the why behind?
So recognition and awards are, I think, one part of the journey, but eventually you at each phase you have certain challenges. Currently, we are in the large scale deployment phases. So these days, all the time we are talking more about, okay, we have to execute for this project, we have to secure those projects, and we have to, let's say, scale this solution to be able to take it there where I want to see one of our trees in each houses eventually and create those, let's say, wider scale visions. But yeah, the scaling and large scale industrialization is what currently we
How much capital are you raising right now?
So in our current funding round, we are looking at around 40 million US dollar for
14 or 40?
40. Equivalent of 35 million Swiss franc basically. And this is mainly for scaling up the manufacturing of the core tech, which by the way is currently done only in Switzerland. So we want to scale this so that I can cater to the demand of 1.5 billion worth of projects and actually deploy. The other is the internationalization aspect. As we very well know, of course, Switzerland is our home base, but the market itself is basically wider Europe, India, Middle East, US, even South America from that perspective. And in the hydrogen ecosystem, a lot is basically getting mature at this stage. So it's very important to enter at the right stage. And that's why I think we need also to focus on various international markets. The core product is already very mature, so there's not much adaptation required there. But now I think we have to focus on deployment and execution. So that's why we are raising another 40 million US dollars.
Okay. And your mission has the potential to reshape the whole future of clean energy. So for those who are watching the show, investors, partners, or even individuals, how can they support or join SoHHytec on this journey?
So a very good question, I think, on the climate action, particularly climate action which is attached to a hardware. Hardware solutions are basically, I would not say difficult to challenge, but they have their own challenges. You need the right ecosystem, right? So as I said earlier, we need the right set of shareholders and investors, and we need to scale at a particular pace, basically. So also the fundraising at the right time is quite important. Of course, we are looking for partners on the side of project development, manufacturing, as well as customers. I think anyone who can help us to grow and plant more of our artificial trees, whether it's an individual or a company or an investor, this is what we are looking for, so that we can deploy more and more of these artificial trees. And eventually, actually, one tree can save almost 80 tons of CO2 on a yearly basis. And this is almost 25 times more than a real tree, by the way, if you see the impact. Wow. And this is what we want to do. Our mission is to deploy more and more of these trees.
Amazing. Final call to action, Saurabh. As the time is running out, what would you say to everyone who is watching it now?
Think to, let's say, potential investors and partners. If you are looking for making a dent and creating real impact, basically, on the climate and help us to create sustainable solutions, do join us. And then a message to young innovators, eventually, don't be afraid basically to innovate. You need the right kind of ecosystem. Always surround yourself with the right team, right people. And then, yes, looking forward to creating more impact with creative and climate-based clean solutions. Thanks.
Thanks. It was so inspiring. So we definitely, the next car, once available, will be hydrogen, I think, for us.
It
so
is already available.
I know.
Only we don't have the network yet.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So once.
Next time you guys visit Lausanne, probably we will. So we were planning to have one at our site because it's a very good demonstration of what can be done with hydrogen. So we will.
We'll drop by, as I'm sometimes teaching at EPFL as a guest. So definitely we'll drop by. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot
for these inspirations. Thank you.
Thank you very
much.
See
you soon.
Bye-bye.
See you soon. Thanks a lot.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
So, dear audience, with this we end up the show of today. And remember, plant any trees. The one from the nature, or once available, you can also plant the hydrogen trees. Whatever you can, just do what you can do and support the nature, support the planet. Impact. Bye for now.
Bye for now.
What an inspiring conversation. Impact investing is more than just finance. It's about shaping the world we want to live in.
If this episode sparked new ideas or possibilities for you, don't keep it to yourself. Get involved.
Subscribe for more powerful insights. Follow us on social media and be part of this movement.
Are you an investor making a difference? We'd love to feature your story in our next episode. Reach out and join us.
Let's build a better, more sustainable world, isn't it? Together. See you in the next episode.